It's Fun Friday, May 15th, and this is our math problem, our math work for the day, lesson 17. So we have been using a ruler this week to measure and tell the distance of sides of objects and lengths of lines. And then we've also done math problems with them. But today we're just going to do a lot of like benchmark developing. Learning benchmarks will help you to estimate and choose the best tool to measure an object. You know how we would talk about what would you measure a bus with? What would you measure the classroom with? What would you measure a pencil with? And that was when we were talking about centimeters and meters. But now we're using inches, which is about the size of a quarter, feet, which is the size of a whole ruler, 12 inches, and yards. A yard is just about the same size as a meter stick. It's 3 feet put together. And so you could think about a meter stick when you think about how long a yard is. So here's another way you can think of it. The inch is the size of a quarter. A foot is about the length of a piece of paper, the long way of a piece of paper. And then a yard is about the width of a door. All right, so circle inches, feet, or yard to show which unit you would use to measure the object. So the length of scissors. I usually have a pair of scissors right here, but I don't right now, but I have my my heart puncher. So the length of scissors, what would we use to measure scissors or this? So this is not big enough to use a whole foot width. And so this is something you would measure in inches. You could think about quarters. Look, this is about 6 inches. So scissors you would measure in inches. The length of a desk. So a desk, you could measure it inches, but it would take a lot of inches and you'd have to replace the ruler over and over again, lots of times. But the length of a desk, if you're just using a ruler and you'd only need to use it like 3 times, 2 or 3 times, feet makes sense. Some desks are about a yard long, but yards you usually save for things that are a lot longer. The length of a pencil, once again, that's similar to scissors. Calling it a foot long would be way too long for a pencil. You want to say inches. The length of a book, I think you'd say the same thing. You wouldn't want to say my book is, you would never want to say, unless it's one of those giant books that they have in kindergarten. Books are measured in inches, not feet. The length of a classroom. So classrooms are pretty big, and if you took a big yardstick and measured with that, you could say the class was, say, like 15 yards long or wide. So I think yards would be a good way to measure a classroom. The length of a crayon. Once again, only the Jolly Green Giant would have crayons that were a foot long or a yard long, so that would be inches. The length of a cafeteria. So that would be yards for sure. The cafeteria is huge. A classroom could be measured in feet too. I notice on floor plans for houses, sometimes they use longer measurements like meters. Sometimes they use shorter ones like feet. The length of a piece of paper. So because a piece of paper is not usually 12 whole inches, you don't usually say my paper is a foot big, and besides that the width of it is shorter than the estimated use that we estimate a piece of paper is the size of a foot, and so inches once again. So on this next page you can either cut out or just draw arrows. You can color these pictures if you want. You're going to choose between inches and yards. A teacup, a van, a donut, a tree, a giraffe, a bone, like a dog bone, a chalkboard, and a frog. And decide which 4 you would measure with inches and which 4 you would measure with yards. Either draw an arrow from it, like this, or this, or you can cut it out if you want and use your glue.